Hey everyone, hope your day is going well. So, today is Thursday. This is the third or fourth time we're doing a video. Hope you guys are enjoying these. Please leave a comment or feedback. When you see it on the live, just go into the actual message and type something so we could get some engagement. I don't want it just to be me. And I hope this is benefiting somebody, right? So atomic habits, again, to me this is the most crucial thing to actually then not fall into the habit of that anxiety and depression because we're not taking care of what we need to take care of. And our habits is what actually takes us to those places. And some of those habits are so ingrained in us that we just do them naturally, and then we call it fate, instead of realizing we had the choice to change those habits and create a different future for ourselves. That's with having faith, right? He actually talks about that in the book, like your habits lead to your fate. That's what we think, right? So we think like we wouldn't reach somewhere successful, or we don't have the luck because of fate, but it's really our habits are dictating that fate. So from the previous chapter, we talked about a habit is a behavior that has to be repeated enough times to become automatic, right? And that's with the cue, craving, response, and reward. So you have to then learn how to develop that. The ultimate purpose of habits is to solve problems of life with as little energy and effort as possible. We don't like to exert energy. We naturally want to conserve energy because we needed to back in the day in survival. Alright, so we really want to break those things. So to create a habit, you want to make it obvious, you want to make it attractive, you want to make it easy, and you want to make it satisfying. And that's what we talked about before. So the first law, that's what we're going to go over today, is make it obvious. So we're going to work on making it obvious, okay? The Man Who Didn't Look Right is the name of the chapter, chapter 4. And to me, the biggest thing in this is really what he says is that we have to become aware of our own habits. If we're not aware of it, we don't know what to change. So if we want to change habits, the first thing we have to do is figure out the current habits we have already. Some things are so mindless, we don't even realize we do it. So over time, the cues that spark our habits become so common that they are essentially invisible. The treats on the kitchen counter, the remote control next to the couch, the phone in our pocket. Our responses to the cues are deeply encoded that it may feel like the urge to act comes from nowhere. You ever just out of nowhere pull up your phone and want to go on Instagram or Facebook? It's just like it's there. Or you're bored, so you just mindlessly scroll, right? And this is what happens with people naturally. For this reason, we must begin the process of behavior change with awareness. That's the biggest thing you need to change in any aspect of our life, is that we have to become aware, right? Before we can effectively build new habits, we need to handle our current ones. And Carl Jung, he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You'll call it fate, F-A-T-E, right? Thank you all for joining. I really hope this benefits you all. So we really have to change our habits. So they have this thing called a pointing calling system. It's a safety system that reduces mistakes. It seems silly, but it works incredibly. Pointing and calling reduces errors by up to 85% and cuts accidents by 30%. I don't know if you guys take the MTA. You see when the conductors are riding on the train, when they come up to certain points, they point. So they don't call it anymore, so they point and call back in the day, right? That was the original way to actually observe a habit and to be aware, because who wouldn't fall asleep riding that train all day, right? Back and forth, back and forth. Same thing with our habits, we kind of just lose track of it. Like we get so used to just picking up our phone, scrolling on it, and we know we don't want to scroll, or we know we don't want to eat something. So what they're saying is with the pointing calling method, say, hey, I'm about to eat a donut. This donut, I don't want to eat it because what's going to happen? I'm going to end up, gaining more weight because I'm putting extra calories in my body that I don't want to. right? Or I pick up my phone. Hey, Jay, you're going on Instagram. Look at you. You're about to click Instagram. You know, be careful. And the reason I say these things is because these things I have to go through. I'm not much of a donut person, but I love to eat though. So what they're saying is list all your habits. We're so used to doing whatever we've always done that we don't stop to question whether it's the right thing to do at all. A lot of people say, oh, this is the way I've been doing it for so long, right? And this is just the way they are. Many of our failures in performance are largely attributable to a lack of self-awareness. So we have to be observant of our habits. So just list. So the first step, this is your first action step, is to list your habits throughout your day that you perform every day. Wake up, turn off the alarm, check my phone, go to the bathroom, weigh myself, take a shower, brush my teeth, floss my teeth, put on deodorant, hang up the towel to dry, get dressed, make a cup of coffee, right? So all these things we did in the morning before we even got out the house, and we didn't realize it was all habits that we ingrained in ourselves. So we have to figure out which habits are good, which are not. And so how do you figure out which are good and which are not? Because some habits are good for certain things and some habits are not good for certain things. So you really got to decide on that goal. What is the goal? The marks you give to a particular habit will depend on the situations and your goals. So what he did, if you look at the book, this is the list of habits, and then he put pluses and equal signs and minuses. So a plus is something that's positive to do. An equal sign is neutral. It doesn't really affect too much. And minus is things that are negative. So it really all depends on what you're working on to create this value system. So I would really say to create that point system, you want to figure out what your habits and figure out what your goal is. And then you can figure out which habits are serving you and not. Does this behavior help me become the type of person I wish to be? So I would say that's the biggest question behind every habit that you have. Is this helping you become who you want to be? Does this habit cast a vote for or against your desired identity? I knew I had to get up and sit down and call business cards, right? And I had to get into all these rhythms to be creating these businesses to actually just live the life that I desire. But it takes time. Right, and the more aware I become of my habits, the more I can change it. So, does this behavior support the identity you wish? Right. The first step to changing bad habits is to be on the outlook for them. You can try the pointing calling system. Say out loud the action that you are thinking of taking and what the outcome will be. Right. So that's what I had mentioned before. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness. Strategies like pointing and calling and the habit scorecard are focused on getting you to recognize your habits and acknowledge the cues that trigger them, which makes it possible to respond in a way that benefits you. And that's the biggest thing. So what did we get out of here today? We want to become self-aware of our habits, what they are, so write them down. Do they fit the goals that we have? And if they're not serving us, we really want to use that pointing calling system like, hey Jay, you're about to eat these wings that your wife made with gluten. That's not good for your red cheeks, right? Or whatever it is, so your cheeks are going to get redder, right? That I'm okay with making fun of myself or whatever. I'm not making fun of myself. It's the reality behind it. And that's what it takes to actually become successful in anything you do, even if it's just putting off a few pounds. It's just being mindful of what you're doing. So become aware, then create a scorecard of your habits, and then decide if these things are going to benefit you or not, and call yourself out. Use the pointing calling method. So that's pretty much it for today. Love you all, and I hope you have a blessed day. Take care.